I think we're in for the most explosive growth ever in history, because I believe there's an entrepreneur out there, some distributor, some independent contractor is out there right now saying, what if I did this? It only is a matter of time and simplification and letting it coincide with the technologies of the day. And we will see the biggest growth in the history of the industry.
Welcome to Direct Selling Shift, an exclusive podcast by DSN. I'm your host, Blake Mallen, and this is where direct selling high performers and experts share their most powerful shifts in mindset, skill set, and strategy to help you accelerate your business and amplify your impact. I challenge you to be present, open your mind, and let the shift begin. Welcome back to Direct Selling Shift. Our guest today brings an impressive 41 years of experience in the direct selling space. He is an absolute master when it comes to culture, self-help, leadership, among so many other things. Absolutely blew my mind when I found out he's been running a mastermind training. Get this, sharing wisdom every Saturday consistently for 21 years straight. He walks the walk. Most important priority, though, to him, living the principles that he teaches every single day, a deep-seated commitment to lifelong learning, his value system, and I believe is just a true living example to the power of consistency, longevity, and what's possible when you have a profound readiness for the journey ahead. I'm telling you, stop what you're doing, be present with us. This is going to be one of those conversations that gives you the shifts you need. Please help me welcome to the show, direct selling legend, Dan McCormick. Dan, how you doing, brother?
Blake, what a terrific, kind, and well thought out few words to start us off. And it's great to be with you. I'm just fired up that you guys had the inspiration to start this podcast, and hopefully we can give back to those that are new to the journey, and maybe those that are on a plateau in the journey, or those that have been down the road like 41 years from me. So just a thrill to be with you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited about all the conversations I get to have on this show, but I am absolutely inspired by your story, right? I mean, what you've been able to do, and I'm just so excited. I got all kinds of questions, and I know this is going to be super impactful. But first, wait, 41 years? I mean, that's not a typo. 41 years?
It's not a typo. I started when I was 19, and it's just my story.
I mean, Dan, are we talking, you got to take me back. Were we talking VHS tape tool?
Just before the VHS tools, just before satellite communication, before conference calls, before conference bridges. Yeah, all of it.
I think that's absolutely amazing. The perspective I'm sure you've been able to gather is going to be so insightful. I mean, that 41 years is 4 decades. I don't know if I've ever had a chance to talk openly with someone that's reached your status that's been around for that long in this space. You know, I'm sure there's so many moments. What was one of the most emotional moments in your 41 years to date?
You know, I have this mentor, and we'll get into it later. My wife had Stephen Covey as a professor in college, and he liked to say that your next project should always be your most important project. Like, I think Shift is your most important project because of your connection and reach. Mm-hmm. For me, the crescendo started 18 months ago.
Oh, wow.
And I was walking through the halls of a convention center, and I walked up to this desk to register for this conference. My assistant's on the other side of the desk. There's a book and a journal for sale. And I said, I'll buy the book, I'll buy the journal, but I'm so ingrained in my system, I probably won't read it. This lady who was standing next to my assistant leaned forward and she said, Dan McCormick hasn't read Miracle Morning? And I just was so taken back. I went home from that conference. I watched the documentary that Sunday night with my wife. I woke up at 5 o'clock the next morning like I always do or usually do. And my life has been on a trajectory of manifesting miracles. Like, it's just a plethora of enthusiasm and excitement that I have for my life. So probably the highest emotion is the most recent emotion. outside of getting married and having 4 daughters and 14 grandkids.
I love that answer, right? And that's probably a key that has allowed you to do what you've done for so long is the most recent, right? The newest,
Yeah.
and being kind of perpetually, I guess, passionate about what you're doing. Well, rewind for us real quick and kind of tell us where this all began, all began for you in the channel. Would love to hear kind of your origin story.
So just if you can imagine growing up, I'm 12 years old. I've got a passion to play tennis. I grew up in Seattle. There's a lot of rain. I've got an outdoor tennis court at the facility my grandmother lives at, and so I play tennis there. But it's raining a lot. Mm-hmm. So there's an indoor club about a 12-minute bike ride away. And I had my mom take me over there one day, and I say, "Mom, I know it's $25 an hour to play tennis. That's a lot of money. I can't afford that. She can't afford that. But what if I go over there and see if I can get a job?" At the age of 12.
Oh, wow.
And the owner hired me. It was the Seattle Supersonics Racket and Health Club. General manager hired me at the time. He was a future owner. But I started off at $2.35 an hour to trade for court time. So I would go in and clean the toilets, vacuum the tennis courts, do all that stuff. And it was an amazing journey because imagine working at a private club, Bellevue, Washington, before Microsoft. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a different world. Like, the company that ran the economy in Seattle was Boeing. And lo and behold, I get this job at $2.35 an hour, work there for 3, 4, 5 years. I'm always fascinated by the members. Why did they have money? Why did they have time? Interesting. Why did I always pay attention to that? Professional athletes would be coming through there, whether it's the Seattle Supersonics, visiting tennis teams, great, the number one top tennis players in the world, et cetera. And so at the age of 17, this gentleman, who I always kind of looked up to as kind of a potential father figure, since my dad had left at an early age. And he said, got right up into my airspace, kind of like, you know how people can make it uncomfortable for you?
Uh-huh.
And he called me Dano. He says, "I need a laborer this summer. I'll pay you $5 an hour." And I go, boom, done. And I'm finishing my last year of high school. I have no idea what I'm going to do in my life. But my mom said something magical, because I always was asking for money. And she said, "Son, you better make a lot of money when you get older." And I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that it was more than I had. And it was more than we had. And so I get this job. I'm making $5 an hour. And I learn how to be a laborer. I mean, we're talking dirty. We played AC/DC, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap, every morning. It was a dirty job. And I'm mixing acrylics and materials and walk tops and oils and bases, mix it all together, take it out to him, and we built the tennis court. And he was a perfectionist. He was a very high ethics guy. Like, you would always want to do the job better than you bid it out to be. So he taught me these principles early on in life. And so I make $5 an hour. I go off to Washington State University, and I had the most, in a live audience, I always ask the crowd, if I could visualize you and I in front of 1,000 people right now, how many of you had a college experience? If you could just raise your hand, right? And Blake, did you have a college experience?
I did.
And then I say, I finished in just 2 weeks. How many of you did that? And the reality is that I finished. I didn't say I graduated. Mm-hmm. I finished my college experience in 2 weeks. I got a reckless driving ticket going home from Washington State University back to Seattle. No. Yep. Reckless driving. I was going 80, so it was considered a reckless driving ticket. I'm 18 years old. And I go home, I call my boss, and I say, I got a reckless driving ticket. He says, Dano, I'll pay that ticket for you. You come back and work for me again next summer. I'll give you a raise to $6 an hour. So I'm on this journey building tennis courts, and boom, going back to your emotion question, like, the greatest emotion I can feel is reading the newspaper ad the Sunday morning when it said, "Are you making what you're worth?" I live in Beverly Hills, California. I drive a Claney, and I made $96,000 in the health and nutrition industry, supervisory positions available. Boom, my mind is exploded. Like, I have no career. I have no self-esteem. I have no self-worth. I certainly have no net worth, but I'm in a business opportunity ad. What is this? And this ad showed up in the paper the next day. I was still intimidated. I didn't call it. Showed up the third day. And then on the fourth day, I looked at my mom and I said, Mom, they must be desperate. Nobody's calling this ad. And I called, and the answering service said that someone would call me back. And when this gentleman called me back, palms of sweating, unbelievable, hair down to here, right? Jeans, tennis clothes, all I had to my name. And this gentleman told me about how I could make a change in my life. Mm-hmm. And he asked me to meet with him at the Greenwood Inn in Bellevue, Washington. He got his flip book out and did that. And then Blake, he invited me to a meeting. And I called my mom.
Like in person, like an in-person meeting.
Like an in-person meeting, like the way you do things, right? And I go home, I call my mom. I said, Mom, we're going to go to a meeting tomorrow night in downtown Seattle. And we go to our first meeting. And Blake, it was as if the movie was playing out before me. I didn't know how. I couldn't see the end, but I had this vision that I would have a successful career. I had the vision that I would get married very early in life. And lo and behold, I went to that meeting. I started my career in the industry of direct selling, networking, person to person. I remember my first calls, my first sales, my first audio cassette tapes that I listened to. I remember the trainings that I went to. I remember the feeling of all of it, right? And within a couple of weeks, I meet my future wife. And 8 months later, we were married.
In the business.
In the business. She was my upline. I always tell people, you're going to marry, you marry up. Guys, we know that, guys, we marry up every time, right? But I married 3 generations above me, Blake. So
wow. Really. How old were you guys when you met?
I was 19. She was 23, I think.
Wow. 19 was a pivotal year for you.
Pivotal year, right? Like, can you imagine going home telling your mom at 19 you're going to get married after she's not been successful in the marriage world, or telling your friends that you just dropped out of college and I'm getting married? They're like, what? You want to think this through? But it's what I always thought about. I wanted to marry young. I wanted kids young. And it just has been a magical 41 years, as you say.
An ad. It was an ad.
Ad in the paper.
41-year industry icon, all the stories.
Yeah.
It was an ad that got your attention.
And you and I could say today, well, what's that ad today? It's content, right? It's content that's on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok, you name it. It's just a different way of putting yourself out there and create content that says, hey, I can show you a system and a way. And somebody showed me a system and a way. And somebody showed me that they could teach me how to believe in me.
41 years, if you don't mind me asking, so how many companies, you got started in the industry in that moment, how many companies over the last 41 years?
Call it 3 companies.
41 years.
Yeah.
Right? Dan, I just want to applaud you, because I think you and I both know, like, in this space, like, especially today, just attention spans and the rate at people are on to the next thing, shiny object here, there, overnight entrepreneurs. So, I mean, thank you for being an example, 41 years. Question for you. So, like, loyalty in your family life, loyalty in your business life. Do you think loyalty is something that, like, you had naturally, innately? Do you think that's something that's like that people have or don't, or you think that's something that people learn? I'm curious your perspective on that.
Boy, that's really a good question. I have thought about this before, and I like to think that most things in my life, if I've ever ignored the wisdom of my wife, it usually goes wrong. I think that she was a daughter of a businessman in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Not only did this businessman have a group of business people, they had a book club. And my wife at a very young age was reading the Zig Ziglars and the Dennis Waitleys and the Og Mandinos. And there was just something about her, from her father, from that group, from that principle-based start. And I can go into later, if you like, about where the origin of the word principle comes from and why it's such an integral part of my life. But I think loyalty is certainly a thing I value. And I don't know that I can explain it beyond the fact that I love people so much that I just hope that every day I can add more value in some way. And And I think that if I'm loyal to that mission, that I'm generally going to choose the right things. As you know, when you're entrepreneurs and you make mistakes and you do business deals, you're going to make them. They can be costly and painful and setbacks and heartache. And you go, wow, I really did that. Yeah. But I think generally we always think, am I getting better, not bitter because of any, wrongdoings or wrong, errors in judgment, if you will. But I value loyalty a lot, and I think that's really perceptive of you in a big way.
Well, I just had to ask because when I'm connecting the dots of your personal life, right? 19, met at 19, together and happy today, and then 41 years in one path, right? With only a handful of companies. That's just unfortunately not normal, quote unquote, right? Or usual today. So I just want to say hats off for living that way, but also your perspective on that. But yeah, go a layer deeper. I know you've had some amazing mentors throughout those 41 years that have had a huge impact. So I'd love to learn, who has had an impact on you, and if you opened up that loop on principle. So I'm intrigued. So yeah.
Please. No, I think the crowd will really love that. So make sure you remind me to come back to the origin of the word principle in that story, because it's a big time cool thing. Worth everybody staying to the end to hear that one. So I walk out of the parking lot that night at that meeting downtown. And this gentleman who I'd never seen before, met before, is the sponsor of my sponsor.
Okay.
We called it sponsor back in the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do we refer to it today? An affiliate, whatever, right? And this gentleman says to me, and I don't remember what his first line was, but there was three of us. And he said to me, I got to tell you how my life changed. I walked out into my garage in 1982, Calgary, Alberta, real estate salesman. Interest rates are 18%. That's his world. And it came crashing down. His partners left. He lost everything. He was $53,000 in debt. They move into this small little duplex, and he kicks the garage box that had all of those original cassette tapes from industry standards in the 60s, in the early 70s. And the book that showed itself to him was The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino.
Okay.
And he shared that book with me. Now, mind you, at that time, I had read very few books in my life. I didn't really know how to read. I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to learn. And I thought, well, if it could change his life at that level, maybe I could do it. And I tried it, and it didn't work the first time. As you may or may not recall, The Greatest Salesman is a book to read. The Greatest Secret is a journalized version that you do every month for 9 months, 45 weeks, 10 scrolls. And when Og wrote the book, he wrote the book from the paradigm of an alcoholic.
Okay.
So when that first scroll hit, it was Rich DeVos that actually held this book up on stage in 1968. And that's when the whole crescendo and the flood began for the world of self-help to say, hey, there's a different way to learn, and it's through parables. And that's the way Og wrote. So that was a watershed moment for my life. Because then you hear the famous line, whether it was Jim Rohn or whoever pioneered the quote, ideas can be life-changing. You only need one. Readers are leaders. Leaders are readers. So I had to go through that. And I like to tell people that while my wife and I were experiencing everything positive you can in the world of business at young ages, it was 7 years of the journey before I said, why don't I just trust this? Why don't I just fully embrace this? I think that I had mentors. I had people that showed me the way. I can still have those people. Why don't I just trust it? Why don't I just step out? Why don't I lead out? Why don't I just create the systems of success of leadership for my teams? And it was magical.
Why do you think it takes, in your case, 7 years, right, of being in the environment and having access to the mentors and being handed the books? And like, what shifted for you in that moment 7 years in that you all of a sudden started asking yourself those questions and giving yourself different answers?
So if you think about it, the shift, the name of the podcast, and of course, what DSN will do for everybody is hopefully bring a shift to people, doesn't have to be 7 years for you to make money. Like if you've got a hero product in your company today, you can make money today. Mm-hmm. But I think the 10,000 hour rule that you and I are familiar with, and the other people that we've watched grow up in the industry, for me, it was just 7 years of emotional connection to self-help and the full buy-in to leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another great word. We can talk about the origin of the word leadership when we do principle later on, because leadership means far more than what most people think it means. And so for me, I always like to think that 7 is the magical number. Maybe for some people, in some things you do in life, change can happen in 7 days. But in this particular journey, to get to that level of clarity and understanding, it was 7 years.
What was the moment where you were looking back, right, from the person you described, right, that responded to that ad, right, who got hit with the word? What did you say? It's like, are you getting paid what you deserve? What was the
headline of the ad was, "Are you making what you're worth?" And I was making $6 an hour.
I mean, I felt that when you said that, right? Are you making what you're worth?
Yeah.
So like you're starting, Dan, right, in that moment where I'm sure that hit hard, right? In order for you to react and respond, you go through this journey of self-help and personal growth. At what point in your journey was like the I made it moment? The I made it. And I'm not saying that could mean financially. It doesn't have to mean financially. I mean more like, in yourself, in your feeling, like you're like, wow, Dan, like I made it.
Wow. It's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of different reference points I have. And, the history of the industry, a lot of those reference points come with a dollar sign and a figure with a few commas in it. Right. And I'm so past that now. And my energies are so much all in for helping other people find that moment for them. Again, that's that living life in crescendo thing that, I mean, can you imagine having your first child and then living through that, and then your second, and then your third, and then your fourth, and then you have your first grandchild? And there's so many of these moments, Blake. I just think that it's just all encompassing with a heavy dose of what Stephen Covey taught my wife. I mean, Stephen Covey was Time Magazine's 25 most influential people in the world, right? I mean, you're talking about, here's my wife going through his class as a student in 1980 in psychology, organizational psychology, and he does a 40-day sugar fast. Like the students have to do a 40-day sugar fast. So there's just this level of discipline that my wife brought to me. And it was the books we read, the people we hung out with, the living in the moment. Now, did I have some real aha moments of, wow, I'm all that in a bag of chips? Yeah, I did. I mean, I'll never forget when I bought my first 500 SEC AMG in 1984. And I'm like, man, I'm just as cool as the other side of the pillow, right? But the reality is that once you have your first child, life looks a little different. You grow up. And I just really do feel that the answer to your question, it's just the journey. The longer and longer you are in the journey, the more you realize there is no end to the journey. And it's just that level of contribution and service that you hope to bring to other people every day. Miracles like happen in my life. The guys that I've met this week are like unbelievable people. Like I'm going, holy cow, how have we not ever met? Literally a phone call on Tuesday that led to a Thursday morning interview on one of my podcasts from an individual I'd never met before. And it's just like, now that's a story the world needs to hear. Like unbelievable stuff.
I'm imagining being a listener, and this show, DSN does a great job kind of pushing it out across the channel. We've been very blessed by just the rate of adoption and sharing across so many different companies, brands, categories. So it reaches a lot of individuals at different seasons in their journey, right? And I'm picturing someone listening to this conversation, right, and saying, okay, I get it. Like I can visualize what I want. Things are manifesting. Things are working. And then I can picture the person that's in that season you and I both know well, right? We've been there, where it's like, in their mind, they're like, that ain't my life right now. Like, they think doors, I don't see doors flying open. I feel like I'm in the dark. This isn't working. What's your guidance to the person right now that they're feeling in their current situation is the opposite, right? They feel like what they're doing is struggle, or they feel like what they're doing isn't working, or they feel like they're in the valley. What guidance do you have to that person right there? Because I know you've been there.
Oh man, have I ever. I'm going to try to stay as positive as I can on this answer. because I believe that when you revisit the past without a paradigm of the future, and when you're in the present, there's some things that can really be disturbing to people here. As my friend Dr. Benjamin Hardy would say, in 10x is easier than 2x, organizational psychologist that wrote Be Your Future Self Now. He and I, it's funny, he and I are texting today, and he's writing the afterword to my new book, and we'll get to that. But if we go back to Jim Rohn and you think that incredible voice, I mean, even the Og Mandino voice, just those incredible, pure wisdom, humble, grateful people. And I traveled the world with Jim, so it was interesting.
You spent personal time with Jim. Like most people know Jim Rohn as like the black and white TikTok videos from a long time ago. You knew him.
I got pictures right here with me and Jim in Bermuda, pictures with me and Jim and our wives on a cruise ship in Tahiti. And, and so let me get back to your question and see if I can really draw upon that, because I want everybody to know that because you and I have been there, and when it feels like the world is falling on top of you, this paradigm really helped me break out of the plateau in my life 18 months ago when I told you about was the most emotional. So when I read that Miracle Morning, and that really jolted me off of my plateau, the world couldn't see that. The world didn't know I was struggling for years because the outside was fine. Looking what I did or how I communicated, if you and I met at a convention, a trade show, a beach or whatever, it would look fine. But I'm talking, how did I truly explode the trajectory of my life from a dead plateau, Blake, that was going on for years? Wake up and do my routine, which I thought was good. But as you and I both know, when you're going sideways and plateauing like this, you're really going backwards, right? And so there's a combination of miracles that happened in my life that changed my paradigm to the person that's going through the deep, dark, tough time, because you think it's never going to end. But as you know, Jim Rohn taught the seasons beautifully, and a lot of people have written about the seasons, and you talk about the seasons. And, when you think about where we're at right now, at the time we're filming this, spring is right there in front of us. And if you've been in that dark, cold winter, the body is aching in pain and things aren't going right. Your systems aren't clicking. Your story isn't smooth. The dollars aren't flowing. All of that stuff, spring forward at the genesis of where it will all change. And here it is. The paradigm that you and I, if we're in a live audience right now, we ask for a show of hands. How many of you believe that thoughts are things?
Absolutely.
What we think about, we bring about, right? Do we believe the words we use truly are important? And if we can all agree that we believe in that, we don't get to pick and choose. So here's the point. The point is, in the darkest of the abyss, know that you can change the words. And I'm going to go back to the origins of history, and that is, I am. Because if you wake up or you say, oh, thank goodness it's Friday, and then you come back to work and it's Monday morning and you go, another Monday morning, I am tired, I am sick, I am lazy, those types of I ams become defamation instead of I am fired up. I am hungry. Les Brown, right? He liked to get on stage and say, you got to be hungry, right? And all of those things. And so I am nature's greatest miracle. Do we believe that? Og said it in scroll number 4. And if you believe it, you can start to change. Because if it's focused on the defamations, if you let one sneak in, it's one too many. You have to be vigilant, you have to be rigorous, and you have to be very, very intentional about what that future self is. I mean, when Dr. Ben wrote the book, he did incredible studies on be your future self. And so what is that future self? So here's the key. In order to make your present better, you've got to make your future bigger.
Wow. Say that again.
In order to make your present better, you're in that dark place right now. You and I are standing on stage. We're sitting in chairs right here. We're talking in front of thousands of people. In order to make that person out there that's just like, oh man, my relationship, I just wish it was better. I wish I could understand my kids better. I wish I had a better income. I wish I had a better title. Oh, baby, we got to let all that go And we've got to know, in order to make our present better, we've got to make our future bigger. When we do that, Blake, we forgive the alcoholic in our life that caused hell. We forgive the divorce. We forgive the people that owe you money. We can reshape and say, all of the past made me better. I've got to lose the bitter, because the future me is changing right now. And my book that'll be coming out shortly is called Awakening Who I Am. And I truly believe that all of these amazing people that have gone before me have shaped me and put me in a position, helped me meet you. You and I met at a very interesting time years ago. We'll leave that story for another time. But we've never really had a relationship, but we connected recently, and we thought, man, maybe there's a way for us to add value to somebody's life today.
Dan, so powerful. And I think that's going to resonate with so many people listening right now, regardless of what valley you're in, whether it's something that's just a little dip, or it's something that you're in that dark space that when you're talking, Dan, we felt you were there, right? And we can call it a plateau, but like you said, when we're in those plateaus, right, they don't feel like plateaus. Right. What I'm hearing you give us the guidance is we got to cast our vision into the future and really start to design where we want to go, create that excitement, and gather the lessons, right? And start to have gratitude from all the experiences and all the wounds, really, that we have leading up into this point. And I'm hearing that you're very intentional about words. So like specifically, or like tactic wise, where does someone start? Like what language, where do we start? If we need to start changing our internal dialogue, choosing better words, like what does that look like for me if I want to begin that journey right now?
Man, such a powerful question, right? Because, like, look, me as the tennis player at 19, building tennis courts, stringing tennis rackets, making $5 an hour, right? There was a language. There was something that was like, I had an optimism, but I didn't have an intention. And what I've learned recently is one of the fastest ways to explode your life off the trajectory, out of the valley. I mean, Spencer Johnson wrote one of the great books of all time, Peaks and Valleys. I mean, it's a classic must. It's simple. Like great books are simple. And when you can explode yourself out of the plateau, out of the valley, it's going to look like this. You're going to look to serve somebody. How do I help you? Somebody has a need. Let's just go through the industry and the history of the industry, the biggest selling product items, categories, right? Weight loss. How do I help you really solve that problem? Skincare, acne. How do I really help you solve that problem? Right? So many other product ideas and categories that we could go to, but supplements, energy, weight loss, all of these categories. I used to feel guilty, Blake, taking money from people. I was selling my product at $30, $50, $100, and I thought that might be a lot of money for them. Well, that word, coming back to what you say, instead of shifting to gratitude and thinking win-win, 7 habits of highly effective people, we truly have to believe, as the product evangelists that we are, like if you're in this space, you're likely a product evangelist at some level, right? And so I go back to the origin of words, and I think, I will greet this day with love in my heart. That's scroll number 2 right here. So I've got to put the oxygen mask on me first. I've got to love me first. But what does that word really mean? Well, in the Greek philosophy of love, philia is brotherly love. Do I really care about that person, or do I just want the money and not feel win-win? And so I go from, I will greet this day to love in my heart. Now I wake up each and every morning and I say, I am a creator.
I love that.
We can go to the first words in the Bible, and that is, in the beginning, God created. We can look at the YouTube generation today. They all see themselves as content creators. We can look at the Instagram generation, and you're brilliant at it, by the way. You're way better at Instagram than most people. And you can say, I'm a content creator, because it helps you connect to serve somebody. And if you build that system, let's talk about the modern day brand rep, affiliate, whatever we call them today, the modern day person in our space right now. If you build that system and you can make it look fun, simple, magical, it's easy to get involved. There's people that I like. I'm going to see profit as a result. And then I wake up every day. And in my book, we talk about Sunday. because Sunday, most people think as Sunday fun day. Now, I'm extremely intentional here, so I'm going to get a little bit detailed here. You can edit it if you want, but my Sunday morning is bright and early. That's the most quietest time you're ever going to find. I'm here in my office. I get to my journal and I have words that I write down. And I write down, I am a creator. Creation Sunday. Sunday is the first day of the week. Blake, most people treat the weekend, that's the wrong language, because Friday is the end of most work weeks. Saturday, historically, has been a very busy day for the direct selling world, right? Very, very busy day. And then Sunday Fun Day gets in the way. But Sunday can be your most creative day. And I am a creator. It resonates with the world of content right now. Most
Absolutely.
people are going to, like you created a brilliant, first time I saw you speak on stage recently, you had a brilliant PowerPoint. It was content to draw the eye to the audience to say, this looks fun, looks simple, I can do this. So I go, I am a creator, I am intentional, I am present. Those are the first three words that I write. Now, let me take you through a process here of why this works. Most people are familiar that have been in the industry for a long time with Price Pritchett. Price Pritchett wrote one of the most beautiful, eloquent, simple, powerful books ever written called U Squared. And when he wrote U Squared right there in Dallas, Texas, how would anyone know that a 33-page book that could have that kind of impact? And so what Price taught me is not only do you want to, and we can look at all of the mentors have kind of had this stacking of wins of a way to manifest for your life. So you want to write it, you want to see it, you want to say it, you want to feel it. And yes, I mean you do. Price taught me that specifically. You want to take your fingers and run your fingers over those words. You want to really connect to the creation of the world, of what the world is waiting for every single one of us to create a better, simpler, faster system for people to onboard, for people to sell, for people to be rewarded. And if you're the creator of whatever your product evangelist hero product is, then I believe that you want to see it, feel it, touch it, taste it. Every sense of you is all in. And that's the three words that start my day.
That's so powerful. And I can tell, Dan, and I'm sure everybody listening can feel that you're not just saying this in theory. This isn't something you got from a book that you're passing on. Like, we can tell by just the emotion and energy you're transferring. You live this. Like, this is what you do. And I'm sure you've done.
The quote behind what you just said lit my life up, because I want you to imagine I'm not a writer, and yet I've got a new book coming out.
Yeah.
So how am I going to write a book? Well, I have to be able to download ideas to somebody. So the man that assisted Stephen Covey in that process is my co-author. So I just download on him, right? So here's a guy that worked with Covey for 10 years on the 7 Habits, Principle-Centered Leadership, all those magazines and articles, interviews that he did from all the greatest people in the 90s, et cetera. And I called him up and I said, I know the book's done, but I need time, because James Clear said it so powerfully, it just explodes everyone's mind. Imagine the seat that you're in and the people you interview. In order to write the book, you have to become the book. Otherwise, you are in the fake it till you make it world. And that's not where we live to be our highest, best selves. That's not where we live to see our future self, to live in the future self. I mean, the future self literature from Harvard, et cetera, is extremely powerful. We're changing all the time. It'd be safe to say that, Blake, if you and I had this conversation 5 years ago, your questions would be different, your paradigm would be different, my answers would be different. We're living our future selves right now. So hopefully that answers your question. It's genuine, authentic, real stuff. In order to write the book, you have to be the book. My morning starts at 4:30 or 5 to put those words in the brain, to find that creation, to be that intentional, and to be that present. I mean, I had a life-changing day yesterday. I could share the story with you, but we're going to run out of time. I mean, I have life-changing moments that you have to give time and space to. The self-help personal development world is ready to take you to a place you've never been before. If you truly want to put I am, because the words that follow I am follow you. And I am so hyper aware of it today that I rarely, if ever, can be in a room or around anything that would possibly knock me off center of what my mission is.
For everybody listening, I hope you're feeling what Dan is giving to all of us, because it doesn't matter what season you're in. It starts with the words we use. And as simple as that sounds, it can be everything. Dan, I wrote down, I am a creator. I am intentional. I am present. Guys, he gave us all 3 words to start with. Yep. And don't be sitting there thinking this doesn't make a difference. It can and will and does make a difference. And obviously, Dan, your story is a living example of that. You know, I'd be remiss, because I know you and I could go all day long on personal growth and leadership. And I'm going to come back to the questions that you said at the beginning. But real quick, I got to understand your perspective really from what's going on in the world and the channel today. I mean, you have 41 years of wisdom and knowledge. You've seen a lot of seasons of shift, right, through those 41 years. So I'm curious, from your vantage point right now, having been through what you've been through, the highs, the lows, the ups, the downs, right? You know, all the transitions in the world over 4 decades. What are you seeing are the key shifts that are happening right now just across the direct selling industry?
So in all the time that I give to this, whether it's one-on-one coaching, group coaching, consulting, and all this kind of stuff, I've come across a paradigm that I think is invaluable for our industry. And that is, we know that independent contractors, brand reps, affiliates, whatever this term we want to use is, right? We know that we have all of this time in a day. And I think that one of my friends likes to say when he introduces me, Dan just loves making friends. And some people buy from him. Others just become friends.
I love that.
My relationship with people isn't based on whether they buy from me. But the paradigm, to your question, is what I see right now are the people and my teams and the teams that I affiliate with, watch, coach, train, et cetera. They are systematized. I mean, I have one team that is the most explosive team that I've ever witnessed in my 41 years. They know every data point. Are you familiar with Mr. Beast?
I am. It's like my son's 8, right? Okay. So like it's his hero.
So Mr. Beast was recently asked, who are you? You're selling chocolate. You do YouTube videos. You do all these business enterprises and ventures. And somebody says, who are you? Are you just a YouTuber? His answer was interesting. I am a data analytics guy. Unbelievable. If you're going to build a massive team of people right now, you better know what they're doing, what they're thinking, what they're presenting, how they're duplicating, how they're onboarding, how they're getting recognized. And I see extraordinary growth in these micro entrepreneurs, in these mission-driven entrepreneurs that have that kind of intentionality to the mission that they want to live. And it is a really powerful thing. Can you be casual? Yes. Jim Rohn. Casual effort leads to casual results. And if you're okay making a few bucks, $100, whatever, then be casual. But if you want to live at the leadership level, if you want to walk the beaches of the world, now personally, I'm one of the strange guys in the world. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to I mean, I love beaches, but I just like my house. I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to be with the people, talk to people. I came to see you a few weeks ago. That was a big trip for me. That was a big trip. I don't go anywhere, but I love I'll make the exception if I know it's great people. So if there's a meeting to do that can move the needle forward, you're going to go to the meeting. If you can I'm supposed to go to an event tonight to advance the meeting. You know, it's like, I want to give away anything I can to serve another. Tonight, I'm supposed to go help somebody serve something at a bookstore. And so can I help somebody else? But hopefully everybody's thinking industry standards are always going to be people. What do people always want? I believe that our industry will always see bull markets.
Okay.
If the entrepreneur and the mission-driven entrepreneur and the independent contractor see systems that serve micro entrepreneurs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I love that. And you've seen technology advance for 4 decades. And that technology looks different in the season. Like at one time, VHS was a groundbreaking technology breakthrough that changed the industry. And then the DVDs that we're handing out. And then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, wow, we had laptops that we could bring and videos that we could play and then the internet that we could share. And now you like, fast forward, we're in this world today where we're on hyperdrive. And there's this open conversation. I'm sure you get hit with this all the time in your communities, where you have this like hyper virtual, digital, online, social media driven, technological savvy. And then you got kind of the in-person connection, relationship, friend, community. Where do you see these pieces going in the future? Like, what does this look like as a business over the next 6, 12, 24 months? I'm curious your perspective on that.
Well, it's the way one of my original mentors said, solve small problems, get small rewards. Solve big problems, get big rewards. You're asking a big problem solve. And that is, how does AI, how does all of this technology intertwine to make our system better, simpler, faster, to give the person looking at it on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, LinkedIn, whatever Facebook or social media platform we're talking about? Or does it just look complicated? Does it look difficult? Does it use language that doesn't seem harmonious and simple and magical? I've got to say that I would say for the most part today, I'm confused about some of the language people choose to use. Okay. Mm-hmm. We want to solve problems. The problem is people need solutions via the products that you represent, the hero products, and they need solutions to their finances. That's the mission-driven entrepreneur in us. We want a solution to that. And if you're not good at that, what I've learned to be really much more forward thinking on is, how do I surround myself with the people that do? Like, what can I get rid of in my life that I'm trying to do that creates anxiety? And how do I bring people to my team? And you can hire people in Scotland to the Philippines, to India, that can do anything you don't want to do for pennies on the dollar, right? And they can do it we have people this week bidding on business for us. And we're like, well, we're happy to pay you. We'll do it for free. We just want to show you what we do. I'm like, what? You're doing it for free? Are you kidding me? So I think right now that we continue to ask a better question. How do I simplify? How do I make it fun? How do I make it simple? How fast can I get rewarded? If I'm onboarding somebody new, can all of those things happen right now? Mm-hmm. Or do I got to go out and read a stack of books and study for 7 years like Dan McCormick and just go through all this learning and jargon and journey before I finally have that exponential hockey growth curve? So hopefully I answered your question to some degree, but I think we're all in a space, in a world that we live in, to where answers are there. If you ask the right question and you be open to the world of helping you, those people are begging to be on your team.
I love all of that. And you're giving us timeless principles, right? In the form of like frameworks and checklists. Like all of us can take what Dan just gave, those words, and ask ourselves literally, in our business, in our system, in our community, are those things true? And how can we make them better? How can we make them more true? I know you have a pretty interesting philosophy, if you will, on just opportunity and how opportunity is always there. Can you kind of elaborate on your philosophy and kind of what you mean by that?
Well, I study the stock market historically, and I like to know what has happened in the history of the stock market. Mm-hmm. And one of my greatest mentors is William O'Neill. He founded the newspaper called Investors Business Daily. He was the youngest man ever to buy a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. He was the most optimistic, positive person I ever read about. I had the good fortune of meeting him before he passed away. And he always had the paradigm: you live in the most exciting times in history. The greatest opportunity is in front of you. It's just a matter of creating and filling that niche mode. Whatever it is you want to do, I just know that the greatest time in history is right now. And we can look at the younger generation and we can say, you know what? But they're distracted. Yeah, they are. But you know what? They're also creating, like Mr. Beast did, a world of change that is going to change our playground of the direct selling world. I think we're in for the most explosive growth ever in history, because I believe there's an entrepreneur out there, and I could list several of them that have founded these billion-dollar companies, had these $100 million companies. There's an entrepreneur out there. Somebody, some distributor, some independent contractor is out there right now saying, what if I did this? Boom, we create this fishnet, this funnel of people to where they're jumping in our boat faster than any time in history. I know one thing for sure. The mission-driven entrepreneur is never going to leave us. The need for you and I to make or help others make extra income to pay for the car, the house payment, the kids' soccer, the college, the tuition, all these things, that's never going to go away. Neither is our industry. It only is a matter of time and simplification and letting it coincide with the technologies of the day. And we will see the biggest growth in the history of the industry.
You're firing me up, Dan. I like it. You're on fire today. And that's the truth, right? I mean, that's the absolute truth. Like,
it is.
I mean, I sit back and I geek out on just what people can do today, day one, getting started as a brand, right, new entrepreneur in their career with the access that is today. I mean, you said 7 years can't really be compressed down to 7 days or 7 months. It is a truly exciting time, but I love how you're putting our intention in the right place and giving us the language around it, because that has to be right on point for us to attract and really welcome the opportunity that's there. You know, I know one of your personal passions is really helping people kind of find their voice, right? And kind of step into their own, and obviously use entrepreneurship, direct selling as a vehicle to amplify that. Like, what does that mean to you? What does that look like to you as a mentor, as a coach, as a leader in helping people kind of find their voice?
Wow, it's just an incredible question. You know, my main mentor, again, wrote a book about it. And here he is, the 25 most influential guys in the world, Stephen Covey, the cover of Time magazine. And all these years are going by, and Covey keeps speaking, coaching, training, uplifting, leading. And he's finally faced with a challenge. Everybody says, what's the next habit? What's after the 7 habits? So he writes an entire book on that. What you just asked me is in this 8th habit. The 8th habit is to find your voice. And here's the key. When you do, direct selling leaders of the world that are watching, newbies that are watching, everybody, when you find it, it's incumbent upon you and I to help others find theirs. That's why you get fired up every morning. How do you find it? Time, prayer, reading, meditating, writing down the specifics. Jim Rohn would say, if you're going to go to the ocean, don't just go with a spoon. Like, you got to take a bucket. There's like billions of gallons of ocean out there. All the knowledge in the world is right there waiting for you to say, I am a creator. A creator of what? Your voice. And guess what? If you don't feel like you ever reach and aspire to the levels of public speakers that speak so eloquently on stage, like yourself and others that are passionate about doing that, it's okay. Because you can find others that can, if you've got the right systematic approach.
Dan, why does it feel so hard to do something that should be so natural?
You know what I'm learning? Slow and steady is okay. Mr. Beast, back to Mr. Beast. He doesn't think in years. He thinks in decades, right? Incredible book. He tells you right there, don't think in days and years. What are you doing today in your mission-driven entrepreneurship that you know has value 10 years from now? Blake, what we're doing today, if somebody watches this 10 years from now, will it have value to them?
Absolutely. In different contexts, different seasons, but principles are timeless, right?
Principles are timeless. Exactly right. So think in decades, not years. In chapter 7 of my book, or Be a Finisher is the final I am. I am a finisher. So Nathan Ricks would be one of the most extraordinary guests ever to appear on your show. Sadly, we lost him January 2nd of 2023. Yeah. And lo and behold, he taught me that principle. Think in decades, or not years. And he was a finisher. He wrote it down. He thought about it. He gave great energy to it at the latter years of his life. We start too many projects. Let's be better finishers. And I'm sorry for your loss there, Dan, and I can see it.
in your face and in your conversation there. I mean, obviously Nathan Ricks was, I mean, an industry icon. His plane crash hit the channel hard, right?
Yeah.
I know he was extremely close to you, and made an impact on a lot of individuals. So I'm sorry for that loss. I once heard a quote that legacy is not what you leave for people, but legacy is what you leave in people. And I just want to say that you are doing a phenomenal job honoring the legacy of not just Nathan, but all the mentors that have poured into you, that now you are pouring into people every single day, consistently showing up, conversations like this. So thank you for being that light. Actually, just to honor even on that moment, I'm not going to ask you one lesson that you got from Nathan directly. I'm going to ask you, is there a lesson that he never told you directly that you got from him just purely by watching his example and the way he showed up?
I would sit next to him in his jet because he liked to fly his own jet, and I'd be in the pilot seat. Oh man, I didn't realize you might get me to choke up here. Wow. He had an unbelievable ability, no matter where we were, to sometimes just shift the conversation and just say, look what's in front of us. We're flying over mountains and valleys and the world, and he's flying his jet, doing what he loved most. And he would say, aren't we just so blessed that we get to do what we do? Just so grateful for every moment. He was a man that lived in the present. He was so good at so many things, being a husband, being a dad. I mean, just so many things. It was all amplified at his funeral. 3,000 people showed up. I met people that he tried to buy water rights from. I met people that he served the streets of New York City with. I met people that did business deals with him. It was just a business icon outside of the direct selling channel. $1 billion a year every year in his team, but outside of the channel, what he did for people, what he gave back, who he was wow. I mean, this is, like you said, we could go all day. That's a topic we could go all day on.
I never had the chance to meet him in person. Obviously, I know the name. But your story and what you just gave us gave me chills completely. And I think if anybody's listening out there, you felt that. So his legacy burns bright, lives on. And thank you for continuing to do what you do to pay that forward and remind all of us the power that each and every one of us has by just rising to the best version of ourselves, living our life by example, finding our voice, that we can have an impact and really can make a difference, and inspire others through this vehicle and this amazing channel. You know, Dan, I do want to leave time for, closing remarks, thoughts. I want to circle back to principle and leadership. But before we get into those, can we just do like a rapid fire round? I'm asking you like 3 quick questions, like 1 sentence answers, no right or wrong. First thing that comes to your mind. Is that okay?
Let's do it. That'll be fun.
Okay, so obviously shifts the show, and it's because I've been just fascinated and obsessed with these concepts of like, I like you said it earlier, thoughts are things. Where focus goes, energy flows. This whole conversation resonates deeply because it all does start with words, which is like a perspective shift, and a shift can really change everything. So my question for you, first on a professional level, 41 years, all the heights, everything you've accomplished. I'm sure there's been many. But what's one of the most significant mind shifts, perspective shifts, right? You went from telling yourself one thing to telling yourself something different that you would say has helped propel you professionally to where you are today.
So I'm supposed to do a 1 sentence answer.
Yeah, quick, 1 sentence, couple sentences, there's we're loose parameters here, but what's top of mind?
I'll say number 1, I am present. That's the 1 sentence answer.
Okay. I love it. I mean, it's something so simple, yet one of the hardest things to truly be today.
So hard.
Same question, but in your personal life, your personal journey, one shift, a significant shift, outside of business, right? In your personal life that you feel has had one of the most significant impacts.
Becoming a better listener. I got to go to my grandson's open house at their school. I have 2 grandsons that go to a special school, and it was Grandparents' Day yesterday, and I tried to be there really hard. Tried to listen.
Beautiful.
I visit a addiction recovery meeting to support a friend of mine. I go every Wednesday night. This week I said, how do I listen to people that are in addiction recovery at a level I've never listened to before. Change your life. Listening. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Book of James teaches you that.
I think we all can be better listeners, no matter who we are, where we are, and what we do. Last one's more kind of a visionary question. And it's a fun one because I step back every now and then and think about like the power of our entire channel. And one of the things I love about being connected with Direct Selling News is we really do have the microphone to the channel. I mean, this conversation right here, right, based on you listeners that are listening to this, like this conversation could reach the industry, right, if we want it to. Last stat I read, Dan, was somewhere around 115 million independent distributors, promoters, consultants, right, entrepreneurs that are passionately promoting different product service categories. My question for you is, if you had the power that you could snap your fingers right now, like Inception-like, and give all 115 million, right, entrepreneurs across the world one belief shift, you could give everybody one mind shift instantly, what gift would you give them?
I am worthy is one of the most difficult things for most people growing up in the world that we do, beat up, beat down, the dark abyss. Most people, probably one of the most impactful moments in any meeting I've ever done in my life, I was in Edinburgh, Scotland. We came back from the break and I asked the audience of hundreds of people, what impacted you the most? I'll never forget it, Blake. Lady in the back left, all the way in the back, she stood up and she said, you told me I was good enough.
Wow.
I am worthy.
You are, and everybody hearing Dan's words right now, you are worthy. You are enough. Just as you are. And plugging into conversations like this are giving you what you need to unlock that power that maybe you don't even know you have right now. It's been amazing. And Dan, like I said, I want to leave time for anything else on your mind or heart or other closing thoughts, but you're not going to leave us hanging. So I got my pen out. Principle. Give it. What is principle? Talk to us.
I've always been fascinated because the first time I heard it, the first time I gave thought to it was, of course, Stephen Covey. And he says, give a man a fish, you what? Feed him for a day.
Yep.
Teach a man a fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And I thought that really doesn't explain principles to me. It does, but there's something more. So I had a chance to meet with a 92-year-old linguist who knew every Indo-European language. He was in his dying years. He was in his old folks' home, Arthur Watkins, Orem, Utah, retired professor. And I had a chance to ask him whatever I wanted to. And he had his jeans rolled up, his Chuck Taylor tennis shoes, Converse shoes on, the black glasses hanging off the nose. And I said, what is the origin of the word principle? Everything slowed down. The room got still as he closed his eyes and said, P-R-I-N, strong, P-L-E, channel. When you are living true principles, those are the channels that move your life forward. That's why we don't want to mess with I am anything negative. We want to live in the truest of principles, that I means exist, am means with God. What you write down follows you. What you say follows you. What you feel follows you. That is the origin of the word principle. And I hope that that is a blessing in somebody's life today.
Wow. I've never heard that. I never knew that, but my life, like yours, proves that to be absolute truth. Leadership.
Oh boy. LEA. I learned this from Kevin Hall, who wrote the book Aspire. Again, Arthur taught us this. LEA means path. DUR means finder. Are you going to create the system of simplicity? Are you using AI technology? Are you using every technological advantage you can muster to create the greatest onboarding system for your customers and team members in the history of the world? You do that, you serve more people than anyone else that ever has been served, and you will be at the top of the comp plan, top of the world, top of the Elon Musk, and the people that serve the most are the people that are worth the most.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for taking time away from your family, from your team, from your grandkids to pour into us. 41 years of experience and insight. I feel like you just gave us the ultimate secret. And I know the listeners out there, yeah, we didn't talk what app technology tool, or, what exact thing we got to post on TikTok today. Like, we didn't go into that. That wasn't today's conversation. But Dan, I feel like you gave us the absolute core key, right, to unlock everything in our business and our life, starting with the understanding of principles, the words we use. You gave us a couple words that we can borrow as our own to get started with. And, knowing that if we really put the real intention into that, it does open the doors. I know your book coming out has been, forget how many years it's taken you to write. I mean, it's 41 years of experience. I know you're pouring into that project. I know you gave us a few of the IMs here. I can't wait to celebrate when it comes out, get it, and learn all of the rest of the IMs and how to apply this in our business. So congratulations. I know that's a huge feat, and we look forward to that coming soon. But this conversation has been absolutely enlightening. Anything else you want to leave us with before we round out?
I will share a story. And of course, we're all full of stories, and we love the human experience. I have a friend of mine that's a business teacher here at Mission Viejo High School in Orange County, California. And he invites me to speak. He invites a lot of business people and entrepreneurs to come and speak to the business class once a year. And so I do that. And I did that last week. And I was last year asking the class, 15, 16-year-old kids, 17-year-old kids, if you believe in affirmations, is there anyone here that writes them? I'm asking the class now. Is there anyone here that writes them down or utilizes affirmations in their life? I have her questions still in the book today. These are all the handwritten notes and questions when I go into the class.
I love that.
And this girl with confidence, clarity, just beauty. She raises her hand and she says, I do. And I said, would you mind sharing with the class? And she said, I wake up every morning and I say to myself, I am capable. And I just thought it was so beautiful that paradigm for a 16-year-old. Can you imagine the power of her life? And that is such a powerful thing that we have the opportunity to do. I have a journaling and a book club with my grandkids. Once they're 8, we have a set time. They have their own journal. We write these things. We have to know that when we're raising our kids, when you're raising your teams, Covey said, when you're raising your kids, you're raising your grandkids. Powerful. I could go on and on about the experiences, the stories, the pictures, the paradigms, the movies in my mind. And I just hope that there's somebody out there today that perhaps if they were in that abyss, that plateau, that dark moment, that tough time, I hope that awakening who I am will change your life. It's changed mine. And I know that in my short time of passing around sample copies, it's having an impact. And I look forward to being back with you. And if there's anything I can ever do for you or anyone on the team, I hope they'll reach out.
Well, Dan, I appreciate it. And you just gave us so much. And for everybody listening right there, right now, I usually say, hey, share the episode, help us make an No, today is like absolute mandatory requirement. Right now, go share this shift. Guys, one shift, the power of one intention, one principle at the right time can change everything. And I'm telling you, today's conversation had so much that so many people in this channel need to hear. So care enough to go share with all of those entrepreneurs, those mission-driven entrepreneurs, as Dan said, all today. This conversation, you can share on Apple, share on Spotify. Yeah, I recommend YouTube because Dan was holding up books this entire conversation. You could have a whole book list for this year if you just watch the video and write everything that Dan gave us here. We're making it super easy at directsellingshift.com. You can go to the website, share the website or the platforms. Oh, and we're on social, all the places at Direct Selling Shift. There's going to be a bunch of clips from Dan's conversation insights today that you can share with your teams and your community. And Dan, thank you again. Thank you for just being the example beyond what you gave us all here today, which was absolute inspiration. Thank you for behind all those words, living every day, these values, these principles, and being an example, not just for our channel, but just in life in general of what it means to find your voice. And then once you do, inspire other people to do the same. So thank you so much for your time today.
God bless y'all. Be well.
Thanks, everybody. Till next time.